Greetings, I'm Dr. Pearl John, and welcome to the Other 167. We continue our series on tough questions and tough answers, and today we focus on the question the void inside, why success cannot fill the emptiness. Have you ever found yourself surrounded by success, a great job, abundant money, working relationships that seems to be going fine, but still felt an unshakable emptiness inside? It's a feeling that many of us face at some point, no matter how much we've achieved. Why does it seem like having everything still leaves us wanting more? In the Bible, King Solomon, one of the richest and wisest men who ever lived, shared a similar struggle in the book of Ecclesiastes. He had wealth, wisdom, power, everything that the world tells us should make us happy. But he still said, everything is meaningless in Ecclesiastes 1:2. Today we'll explore why success alone, as we define it normally, will never satisfy, and what can truly fill that void in our hearts. Let me look at this from three vantage points. One, earthly success can never satisfy our souls. Ecclesiastes 2:10 and 11, we read, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Solomon, one of the most successful figures in history, admits that despite having every pleasure and possession, it all felt meaningless. The emptiness he experienced is the same emptiness many of us feel when we chase after material success, thinking it will fulfill us. Earthly success was never, ever meant to satisfy our souls. It's like chasing after the wind. It looks promising, but ultimately it leaves us with empty hands. Let me unpack this for you. One, success is temporary. Eternity is forever. Earthly achievements fade over time, but our souls are designed for eternity. Only what is eternal can truly satisfy the deep longings of our hearts. And we read that in 2 Corinthians 4:18. Secondly, material wealth cannot fill a spiritual void. Accumulating possessions or status might bring temporary happiness, but the soul craves a connection with something greater, God. Wealth cannot substitute for purpose and peace. And we read that in Matthew 6:19-21. Thirdly, chasing success often leads to emptiness. Pursuing worldly success without spiritual grounding leaves us feeling hollow because external accolades cannot meet the inner need for meaning which only God can provide, as we read in Ecclesiastes 2:10 and 11. The human heart has a deeper need that cannot be filled by anything this world offers. Success without God is like chasing the wind. It promises much but leaves you empty. The second vantage point, true fulfillment comes from a relationship with God. In John 6:35 we read, then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. The truth is, we were created with a God-shaped void in our hearts, and only God can fill it. Jesus calls himself the bread of life, meaning he alone can satisfy the deepest longings of our souls. Let me unpack this for you. God's love is unconditional and everlasting. Human relationships may falter, but God's love never fails. True fulfillment begins when we accept his love and live in communion with Him, as we find in Jeremiah 31:3. Purpose is found in God's plan. We find our true calling and joy when we align our lives with God's purposes, which are far higher than anything we could create for ourselves, as we read in Ephesians 2:10. God satisfies our deepest needs. Our deepest longings for love, security, and identity are fully satisfied in a relationship with God. He alone provides peace that transcends understanding, as we read in Philippians 4:7. When we try to fill that void with anything else, whether it's success, money, relationships, it's like eating junk food when we are starving. It leaves us unfulfilled and still craving for more. Only in Jesus can we find the true fulfillment that our hearts are longing for. When we turn to Him, we no longer have to chase after empty pleasures. We find eternal satisfaction in His presence. The world cannot satisfy your soul. Only Jesus will fulfill what you're searching for. The third vantage point is contentment comes from knowing your true identity in Christ. In Philippians 4:12-13, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Apostle Paul shares something profound. Contentment isn't about how much we have, but about knowing who we are in Christ. Our culture teaches us that more possessions or more achievements will make us happier. But Paul says that true contentment comes from knowing our identity in Jesus. It's about understanding that in Him we are complete, whether we have little or much, whether we are succeeding or struggling. Let me unpack this for you. 1. Identity in Christ means freedom. When we root our identity in Christ, we are no longer defined by worldly standards or opinions. This freedom leads to true contentment, as we read in Galatians 5:1. 2. Security comes from God's unchanging nature. Our identity in Christ is built on God's unchanging character, not our shifting circumstances. This brings a deep and unshakable contentment, as we read in Hebrews 13:8. And thirdly, Christ defines our worth. Instead of seeking validation from achievements or others, knowing we are beloved children of God anchors our sense of worth, leading to lasting contentment, as we read in 1 Peter 2:9. When we find our identity in Christ, we stop striving for the world's approval and start resting in the knowledge that we are loved, accepted, and secure in God's family. Contentment isn't found in possessions, it's found in knowing your identity in Christ. The emptiness you feel when you have everything is a reminder that nothing in this world can fill the God-shaped hole in your heart. King Solomon, with all his wealth and wisdom and success, came to the conclusion that everything is meaningless without God. True fulfillment comes only from a relationship with Jesus, the bread of life, who promises to satisfy your deepest hunger. When you know who you are in Christ, contentment follows, not because of what you have, but because of who you belong to. So the next time you feel empty despite having everything, remember that Jesus alone can fill the void inside. This is Pearl John signing off the Other 167. Thank you for watching the Other 167. We continue our series, Tough Questions, Tough Answers, next week. Until then, have a wonderful week ahead. God bless.